deep within every human soul, there exists a silent realm, a place where dreams bleed into reality and forgotten truths breathe in shadows. It is here, in the unconscious, that the most dangerous sign reveals itself, not in the stars above, but in the hidden chambers of the psyche. What if I told you the greatest threat to your life is not outside of you, but inside? That the enemy you fear most is the one you refuse to see. Tonight, we expose the hidden sign in Carl Jung's psychology, the sign that warns you when your own shadow is about to take control. There is a part of you that you rarely speak of, and often you don't even realize it exists. It moves quietly, like a figure in the dark, shaping your choices, bending your desires, and influencing the way you see the world. Carl Jung called this hidden presence the shadow, and it is here, in the shadow, that the most dangerous sign of the psyche first begins to stir. The shadow is not evil in itself. It is not a demon or a curse. It is simply the collection of everything you have rejected, denied, or pushed away. From childhood onward, we learn to suppress certain impulses, emotions, and instincts. You were taught that anger was unacceptable, that envy made you bad, that desire should be silenced, that weakness must be hidden. And so, piece by piece, you built a mask for the world to see, and behind that mask you buried the rest. Those fragments did not vanish. They gathered, alive and waiting, forming the shadow. What makes the shadow dangerous is not its existence, but its refusal to remain quiet. You see it most clearly when you find yourself judging others, with an intensity that surprises you. The very traits you despise in someone else are often the same traits you cannot face in yourself. The arrogant person who enrages you, the liar who disgusts you, the selfish one who makes your skin crawl. They are mirrors. They show you the rejected fragments of your own being. And this is where the shadow reveals its first sign: projection. Projection is the trick of the unconscious. You throw your darkness onto someone else so that you don't have to carry it. But in doing so, you give away your power. You create enemies out of reflections. You fight battles with yourself, disguised as battles with others. Every time you say, "I could never be like that," the shadow laughs softly because it knows that part of you already is. But the shadow is not content with living in other people's faces. When ignored too long, it seeps into your own life in more destructive ways. It sabotages relationships, whispering jealousy and suspicion into your ear. It feeds compulsions and addictions, pulling you toward the very things you swore you'd avoid. It shapes your dreams into unsettling images, chasing figures, dark rooms, threatening strangers. These are not random nightmares. They are signals from your unconscious, warning you that the shadow has grown restless. Jung believed that the danger of the shadow is not that it exists, but that we refuse to see it. The more you deny it, the more it grows. The more you push it away, the more it pushes back. And when it finally breaks through, it does not come gently. It erupts as anger that shocks even you, as choices that feel out of character, as sudden destruction of the very things you thought you valued. People call it acting out or losing control, but in truth, it is the shadow taking the wheel because you refuse to acknowledge it. And yet, here lies the paradox. Within the shadow is not only darkness, but also life. The very instincts you banished, your anger, your desires, your ambitions, also carry raw vitality, energy, and potential. The danger is not that these qualities exist, but that you abandon them to the unconscious. The shadow holds your unlived life, the parts of you that could make you whole, and that is why it is so powerful. To encounter the shadow is to come face to face with the truth of who you are. It is to admit that you are not as pure as you pretend, not as controlled as you seem, not as flawless as the mask you wear, and that is terrifying. But Jung insisted that without confronting this truth, there can be no individuation, no growth, no real freedom. The shadow must be seen. But how does one recognize it? Start with what repels you. The people who irritate you, the flaws you cannot forgive, the emotions you dismiss as unacceptable. All of these are doorways to your shadow. Watch your dreams. The dark figures that chase you, the strangers who frighten you, the characters who tempt you. These are masks worn by your shadow, asking for your attention. And above all, notice when you feel divided within yourself, when part of you wants one thing while another part resists. That tension, that inner conflict, is the shadow pressing against the walls of your consciousness. The most dangerous sign is not the shadow itself, but your refusal to recognize it. Because when you turn away, you give it power. It will not vanish simply because you ignore it. On the contrary, it will emerge in ways you cannot predict, shaping your fate, twisting your choices, making you believe you are powerless against life. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow archetype, then, is both a warning and an invitation. A warning, because it shows you the cost of denial. An invitation, because hidden within that darkness is the key to your wholeness. The anger you suppress contains your strength. The envy you hide contains your longing. The fear you bury contains your truth. Every part you push away waits for you in the shadow, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be integrated. And when you finally turn to face it, you discover that what you feared most was never an enemy, but a part of yourself longing to return home. From the moment you stepped into the world, you were taught to wear a mask. This mask is not made of cloth or paint, but of behaviors, words, and carefully chosen expressions. It is the face you present to society, the role you play to fit into the expectations of family, culture, and community. Carl Jung called this mask the persona. And while it may protect you, it is also one of the most dangerous signs in psychology when it begins to consume you. The persona begins innocently. As a child, you quickly learned what made people smile and what made them frown. You discovered which parts of you were rewarded and which parts were punished. You shaped yourself according to what others wanted because survival demanded acceptance. The persona, then, was your shield, an adaptation that allowed you to walk among others without fear of rejection. But the persona is not the whole of you. It is only the outer shell, a performance meant for the world. Inside you still live countless other selves, wild, untamed, contradictory, authentic. And here lies the danger. When you identify too strongly with your persona, you forget who you are beneath it. You begin to mistake the mask for your true face. Think of the professional who has spent years perfecting their image of competence and control. They are admired for their confidence, yet inside they feel fragile, uncertain, and longing for rest. Or the person who plays the role of the kind one, always smiling, always agreeable, never daring to show anger or grief. Outwardly they appear harmonious, but inwardly they carry storms of unspoken emotion. The persona works so well that not only do others believe the performance, but eventually the person themselves begins to believe it. And this is the dangerous sign, when you become trapped in your own mask. The persona is not inherently false. It is necessary to navigate life. You cannot walk through the world bearing your raw, unfiltered self at every moment. Society requires roles, and relationships demand compromise. But when the persona becomes rigid, when it leaves no space for the rest of your being to breathe, then it transforms from a tool into a prison. You may feel an emptiness you cannot name, a sense that something essential is missing. You may feel exhausted from holding up the mask, yet terrified of letting it fall. Dreams often reveal the cracks in the persona. You may dream of losing your clothes in public, of being exposed, of forgetting your lines on a stage. These dreams symbolize the fragility of the mask and the unconscious fear of being seen as you truly are. They are warnings that the persona has grown too heavy, too restrictive, too far removed from the truth of your inner life. The persona also creates a profound danger in relationships. If you are always relating through the mask, others never truly meet you. They meet only the role you play. This can lead to a haunting loneliness, even in the midst of love and companionship, because deep down you know that the real you remains unseen, untouched, unknown. Jung warned that over-identification with the persona leads to a life of shallow connections, where authenticity is sacrificed for approval, and yet the mask has power. It offers safety, it gains praise, it provides identity. Many cling to it because they fear what lies beyond it. To take off the persona, even for a moment, feels like death. Who would you be if you were not the strong one, the kind one, the clever one, the successful one? What fragments of yourself would surface if the mask were set aside? These questions unsettle the mind, but they are necessary if one wishes to move beyond the dangers of the persona. The persona, like the shadow, is not to be destroyed but to be recognized. Its purpose must be understood. It is a bridge between the individual and the world, but it is not the self. The self is deeper, older, larger than any mask could contain. The problem arises when the persona claims to be the whole story. When you bow entirely to its demands, you silence the hidden voices within. The voice that longs for rest, the voice that dares to rebel, the voice that aches for freedom. The most dangerous sign appears when you feel increasingly distant from your own life, as though you are an actor who has forgotten they are acting. You go through the motions, you play the part, and yet something in you whispers that you are not fully alive. This is the toll of the persona. It trades authenticity for acceptance, but at a cost so heavy it eventually crushes the spirit. And the world encourages this mask. It rewards the role. It claps for the performance. It tells you, yes, this is who you are, even as a quiet voice inside you protests. But Jung reminds us that true psychological growth, the path of individuation, requires stripping away the false identifications. It requires seeing the persona for what it is, a necessary illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. The mask is seductive because it offers control, but the soul cannot be controlled. The deeper parts of you will eventually rise, demanding to be acknowledged. They may come in sudden anger that breaks the mask of kindness, or in overwhelming sadness that interrupts the mask of strength, or in strange impulses that disrupt the mask of stability. These eruptions are not failures. They are reminders that the persona can never contain the fullness of your being. To live only in the persona is to live half a life, cut off from the depths within you. But to see it clearly, to recognize its role without becoming enslaved by it, that is the beginning of freedom. The persona must be worn lightly, like a garment you can set aside when the time calls for honesty. When you cling too tightly to it, when you confuse the mask for the self, you step into the danger Jung warned of, the danger of forgetting who you truly are. There is a mysterious trick the unconscious plays upon us, a veil it drapes over our perception, so that we may see not the truth of others, but the hidden truth of ourselves. Jung called this phenomenon projection. It is one of the most subtle, yet most dangerous signs in psychology, because it blinds us to our inner conflicts while convincing us that the problem lies entirely outside. Projection begins with denial. The unconscious holds fragments of us that we cannot accept, emotions we disown, impulses we repress, memories we bury. These fragments do not simply vanish. They seek expression, and when they cannot find it within, they slip outward. They attach themselves to the faces around us. You see in another person what you cannot bear to acknowledge in yourself. Have you ever wondered why some people ignite an almost irrational response within you? Why someone you barely know can stir rage, envy, or even uncontrollable fascination? This is projection at work. It is not them you are responding to, not truly. It is your own denied qualities reflected back at you. The liar who disgusts you may awaken the part of you that has lied and cannot forgive it. The arrogant person who infuriates you may embody the ambition you have suppressed. The beauty that captivates you may mirror the vitality you long for within yourself. The unconscious does not ask permission before projecting. It slips beneath awareness, coating the world with images of our own psyche. This is why relationships can feel like destiny, as if you were drawn to someone by forces greater than reason. In truth, you may be meeting not the person themselves, but your projection upon them. You fall in love with your own unlived self. You fear your own darkness in another's shadow. You despise in them what you refuse to face within. Jung warned that projection is most dangerous when we are least aware of it. We believe with absolute certainty that our judgment is objective, that we are seeing the world as it is. But in reality, we are caught in a hall of mirrors, chasing reflections of ourselves. The danger is not only personal, it shapes society as well. Entire groups can become scapegoats, burdened with the projected fears of a culture, unwilling to face its own shadows. Wars have been waged, persecutions carried out, and divisions deepened, all fueled by projection on a collective scale. The unconscious projection is not always dark. It also creates the luminous figures we call idols, heroes, and lovers. When you admire someone with overwhelming intensity, when you place them on a pedestal and see in them a brilliance that feels almost otherworldly, you may be gazing at your own light, disowned and forgotten, shining through another. This too is projection, the projection of your inner potential onto another's form. But whether in hatred or adoration, projection blinds you. It distorts reality. You are no longer relating to people as they are, but as symbols of your own psyche. The relationship is no longer two souls meeting, but one unconscious speaking to itself through the disguise of another. This is why projections eventually collapse. The person fails to live up to the image you cast upon them. The hero disappoints, the lover becomes ordinary, the enemy reveals unexpected humanity. What follows is often disillusionment, anger, or heartbreak. But in truth, this collapse is an opportunity. When the projection falls away, you are left face to face with the part of yourself you had hidden. Dreams often reveal this process in symbolic form. You may dream of strangers who embody traits you struggle with, or of lovers who awaken qualities you deny. The unconscious uses these figures to dramatize what you cannot yet see in waking life. Pay attention to the ones who disturb you, the ones who enchant you, the ones who seem larger than life. They may be carrying pieces of you. The key to understanding projection is awareness. When you feel an emotion towards someone that is unusually intense, pause and ask, what part of me does this reflect? When you find yourself in conflict again and again with the same kind of person, consider whether you are battling an external foe or an internal shadow. Jung suggested that until we reclaim our projections, we remain prisoners of them, endlessly repeating the same patterns under the illusion of fate. The unconscious projection is a sign, an alarm that something within you has been exiled. It calls for recognition, for the courage to look inward rather than outward. This is not easy, because the qualities we project are often the ones we least want to own. It feels safer to condemn them in others than to admit them in ourselves. Yet Jung reminds us that the path to wholeness requires reintegration. The traits we despise in others may be the very energies we need to reclaim, transformed and made conscious. Projection, then, is both dangerous and transformative. It misleads us, blinds us, creates illusions that can destroy trust and connection. But it also provides clues. Every time you feel yourself overwhelmed by judgment or fascination, you are being given a map, a direct link to the hidden chambers of your unconscious. To follow that map requires honesty, humility, and the willingness to see yourself in the face of the other. And so, the unconscious projection becomes one of the most powerful signs on the path of self-discovery. It is the psyche's way of showing you what you refuse to see directly. It is both a trap and a guide, both a deception and a revelation. Depending on whether you choose to remain blind or to open your eyes to the deeper truth within, there comes a moment in every life when the soul begins to stir, whispering that the surface existence is not enough. You may have the job, the relationships, the appearances of stability, and yet a strange unrest creeps in. A quiet voice says there is more. This is the call of individuation, the journey toward becoming your true self. But here lies one of the most dangerous signs in Jung's psychology. The warning of what happens when you resist this call. Individuation is not about perfection. It is not about becoming good in the moral sense, or polished in the social sense. It is about becoming whole. Within you lives not only the persona you show to the world, but also the shadow, the anima or animus, the self that transcends all opposites. To individuate is to allow these fragments to meet, to reconcile the hidden and the seen, to accept both the light and the darkness within. But the danger is great, because many turn away. They cling to the mask. They silence the shadow. They deny the whispers of the unconscious. The warning sign first appears as repetition. The same conflicts replay in your life, as if fate has scripted your story and locked you into its cycle. Relationships collapse for the same reasons. Careers leave the same hollowness. Choices circle back to the same regret. Jung taught that when the unconscious is ignored, it does not remain still. It rises again and again in patterns, demanding recognition. What you refuse to face becomes your destiny. Another sign is the heaviness of meaninglessness. The outer world may look full, yet inwardly you feel a growing emptiness. Nothing satisfies. Achievements turn to dust as soon as you hold them. The roles you play lose their grip. The dreams you once chased dissolve into monotony. This is the psyche's way of signaling that your soul is starving for growth, for depth, for integration. To resist individuation is to risk falling into despair, because life without inner growth becomes a hollow performance. The unconscious does not remain silent when neglected. It speaks in dreams, in symbols, in synchronicities that seem too precise to be chance. When you ignore these signs, they intensify. Dreams turn darker, filled with threatening figures or endless mazes. Accidents and crises begin to cluster, as if the outer world itself is conspiring to awaken you. Jung believed that when the conscious mind resists growth, the unconscious will force it through suffering. This is not cruelty, but necessity. The psyche demands wholeness, and it will not rest until its demand is heard. The danger of resisting individuation is also the danger of projection. When you refuse to integrate your hidden parts, you continue to see them in others. The world becomes filled with enemies or saviors, reflections of the pieces you will not own. This keeps you trapped in conflict, chasing illusions, never realizing that the battle is within. Without individuation, the cycle of projection never ends, and your vision of reality remains distorted. But the greatest danger of all is stagnation. To remain fixed in the persona, to cling to the mask, is to freeze the soul. Growth demands risk. It asks you to face your shadow, to question your assumptions, to let go of false certainties. Many refuse, preferring the safety of their constructed identity. But what is safe for the persona is deadly for the self. Over time, the unlived life begins to weigh heavily, pressing down until you feel crushed beneath the weight of your own potential. Jung spoke of the midlife crisis not as a cultural cliché, but as a psychological turning point. In the first half of life, we build the persona, we seek status, security, belonging. But in the second half, the soul demands depth. If we resist, if we try to continue living only for appearances and surface goals, the psyche rebels. Anxiety rises, depression deepens, or sudden destructive impulses break through. These are warning signals. The self is demanding individuation, and to ignore it is to risk being consumed by the very forces you have denied. The individuation warning is not always loud. Sometimes it is subtle, a restlessness you cannot explain, a sense that something essential is missing. Other times it is dramatic, arriving as loss, betrayal, illness, or upheaval. These are thresholds, moments when life itself pushes you toward transformation. The danger is not the event itself, but how you respond. If you cling to the old mask, you will suffer endlessly. If you listen to the call, you may discover the deeper meaning hidden within the pain. The process of individuation requires courage. It asks you to step into the unknown, to face truths that unsettle your identity, to encounter parts of yourself you have long denied. It is a descent before it is an ascent, a journey through shadow before the light. And this is why so many resist. The persona feels safer, even as it suffocates. But the warning remains without individuation. The unconscious will rule your life in silence, shaping your choices, distorting your vision, until you mistake imprisonment for destiny. The psyche hungers for wholeness. It sends its signals through dreams, through emotions, through conflicts and coincidences. When you ignore them, they grow louder. When you resist them, they grow darker. The most dangerous sign is not the shadow, not the persona, not the projection itself, but the refusal to embark on the path of individuation. You have walked with me through the hidden chambers of Jung's psychology. The shadow that waits in silence, the persona that traps you in its mask, the projections that blind you, and the warning of individuation that demands your awakening. Now the question is no longer about theories or signs. It is about you. Look closely. Where in your life does the shadow whisper? Where does the mask grow too heavy? Whose face carries the reflection of what you deny? And in the stillness of your nights, do you hear the quiet call toward something more? Toward becoming whole. The most dangerous sign is not out there in the stars or in the faces of others. It is within you, in the places you refuse to look. But the same darkness that threatens to imprison you also holds the key to your freedom. The unconscious waits. The self waits. And the choice is always yours. Will you continue to live in the illusion? Or will you dare to turn inward and meet what has been hidden all along?